Thank you for coming. This is a prime time slot that we're lucky to get. My name is Steve Sheets. I am a longtime software developer about everything in the world, mostly Apple and platforms, but everything from desktop to mobile to VR. I ran the Apple Vision Pro user group for a while, and I've been doing panels and talks at MAGFest here for about 7, 8 years now. And I've been joined this group of folks to talk about education. As I mentioned earlier, education is probably the most important killer app we have. It's easily identifiable and possibly, and not only that, but we can see where the vision is going. A lot of the other areas of VR we don't really know, but education is obvious where we can do that. So I'd like everyone to introduce ourselves. Let's start with you, Craig. Go across the board.
Sure. So, good evening, everyone. My name is Craig Yu. I am a professor at George Mason University, Computer Science Department, and I lead the group Design Computing Extended Reality Lab, and I also regularly teach virtual reality course at George Mason University, and some of my students are here today, and of course they know what we are doing at the group, and I do a lot of research on virtual reality training using virtual reality for more exactly augmented reality for storytelling, right? And of course, storytelling can be for fun, but it can also be for serious purposes like training, first responders, generating virtual tours to some historical sites for, immersive type of experience. So I'm happy to share a lot of our research progress if you are interested in that.
All right. My name is Kane Tang. You may call me Tianjin online. I have a master's degree in interaction design at CSU East Bay, all the way in California, other side of the country, basically. I have some experience in education as a TA for some college courses and was a substitute teacher for grades K to 12. Other than that, online, I do I create an augmented reality book called Orphalia that has been on and off in progress. I am also a VTuber and illustrator. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Jordan Higgins. I'm a human-centered engineer lead at a company called MITRE, where we're a not-for-profit corporation that does research and development for the government. And I'm also adjunct faculty at George Mason University, where I teach a course on design thinking and innovation strategy. My background's largely in more the design side of immersive experiences. And right now, one of my areas of interest, and actually, Craig, we should really talk, is we will sometimes do things like tabletop simulations, which is basically very high stakes role playing and things like that. I've been looking at the role of immersive media and generative AI to accelerate the content creation of immersive media so that we can, kind of study its effects on, and, more broadly, multimodal storytelling. So we're looking at immersion inside of a headset, outside of a headset, but like essentially, if you imagine like old school D&D being text based, we're looking at, can we help people develop shared understanding faster and make more efficient decisions by using immersing them into a story rather than just reading it off of a slide. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Hunter Dyer. I'm an assistant professor of immersive media at Chatham University in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. You may have seen me on Thursday where I give a design talk about VR. I make educational VR experiences and open academic resources. So if you want to learn things, find me online and steal all my stuff. It's great, take it. I found out on Thursday I just got awarded a grant to make, this summer I'll be making a virtual reality introduction to virtual reality. So I'm making a
Department of Redundancy.
Oh yeah, that's great. So I'll be making a VR app to teach VR principles.
That's great.
Yeah, and I've worked on many other things in and outside of the classroom. But if that one isn't right on point, then I don't know what is.
And you're getting paid for it.
I'm getting paid for it.
Even better.
My name's Sam Martino. I run Dogwood Gaming, a video game studio I started with my friends almost 10 years ago now, which is crazy, and time is a wild thing. I actually, everybody up here has really awesome credentials, but I am now an adjunct faculty for game design. So it's been a lot of fun doing that. At Bristol Community College in Fall River, Massachusetts. If anybody lives in Massachusetts, it's free. Come join us. We only have 3 like faculty, so we're really building this up. But I've got to do a lot of really cool experiences in education as well as like nonprofit work. I don't think I have to tell anybody the game industry isn't doing great. So we've had a lot of success making games in, for historical societies, museums, and different experiences like that.
Well, thank you, and I personally appreciate all of you guys showing up, both with the cold and the lousy parking. So, let's start out. Why don't you, each of us talk about why we think education is so important with VR? Okay, VR, like I said, VR is a solution looking for a problem to solve, and education may be that. Do you agree with this, or do you think there's something fundamentally different?
I've done so many project proposals, I feel like at this point, for like, how can we put VR into anything? Because it's trying to find what can VR do that makes it so special. And it's being able to show these key points that make it shine. One of the most recent things I got to work on that I loved was we did a racing simulator for the Audrain Museum in Newport, Rhode Island. They have these really nice simulators, and so we rebuilt one of their cars from 1901 and rebuilt the racetrack that's been lost for over 100 years. We had so many kids between like 7 and 14 that came to play who picked up how to drive manual in no time from doing this. And like, these are kids, like their parents were struggling and they were like, he's like mastered downshifting and the kid's drifting around a turn going 50 miles an hour in this 1901 car. But like, you can't do that any other way. How are you going to let a kid learn how to drive manual at 7 years old? So I think there's a lot of ways that you have to find where VR can fit that nothing else can do it.
Yeah, I feel like the secret is in outputs. It's in very boring things like data visualization. So my 2 answers to this question of why education. One is data viz. One is just 3-dimensional information is best viewed in 3 dimensions. They're not projected onto a flat screen. So if I want to look at map data, geodata, if I want to look at, and by data here, we're talking like any graph or chart or piece of whatever it is you're trying to demonstrate or show. If you could just do that more with higher fidelity, everything else should get easier. And then the second reason for why VR is as you've alluded to, is access. It is hopefully, maybe not there now, but hopefully it is a tool for more increased access. And that includes places that you wouldn't otherwise have access to, but it also includes things like a racetrack that doesn't exist anymore that we don't have access to.
I'll put a bookmark on that question because they're going to talk about the digital divide. Yes. Jordan.
So I would actually take that a step further and say that it's already proven itself out as one of the most, at least value-driven applications, and probably in sort of more specialized areas of like education and training. But when we look at we're seeing like things that were pilots 4 or 5 plus years ago, now getting scaled out across organizations. Think Walmart with their customer service training, Bank of America with their similarly, teaching people soft skills about engaging with customers because it works, because they're seeing the return on the investment they've made in the technology to actually translate out to better, faster training, better recall, higher performance. We're seeing it. We talked briefly about the Jaden Daniels, the quarterback of the Commanders, who trains every day in a VR platform called Cognilyze that when he was at LSU they started using, because he can basically run through his reps at 2x speed, I think. So and he's able to do them over and over and over again without taking a physical toll on his body. So when we start to think about these training applications that are dangerous or have sort of physical consequences where VR can make that training both more effective and safer, then I think it's really more a matter of getting the training platforms out there and capturing the data to make it even more effective to really accelerate.
Military is very well aware of this, so they're using it constantly for training right now.
Yeah.
I think there's like 2 things that VR can provide when it's accessible, and one of them is very redundant, I know, accessibility. You can take some group of kids to on a field trip in some virtual world that they cannot physically go on a bus or whatever, take them to Arlington National Cemetery when they're already in like the other side of the country or in the middle of it. And
Not
Or,
to
like-
mention taking them to places that no longer exist.
yeah, that's also
We had a
very
gentleman
true.
here a couple of years ago who went around going to historical sites that are being destroyed
Mm-hmm.
to record them in VR so we have them for the future.
Cultural preservation is a
Absolutely.
Yeah.
fantastic application.
Yeah, and something like, and it would also like, I don't know, like help them like, I don't know, touch or hold something without really touching or holding something like a hamster or a human heart. Because some people will find the idea of holding an actual organ disgusting, basically.
Or a hamster.
Or hamsters are not gross.
No, but some people might.
For me, it was dissecting the frog.
Oh, I never got to dissect anything in high school. I guess my teacher at the time just didn't think that we were responsible enough to handle such a thing.
This-
Yeah.
And empathy, because like if we're being taken to like a cultural or like historical like place that just no longer exists, then there's a chance that we could like feel whatever people who were there once felt before, I suppose.
Sort of those benefits
Yeah.
of like travel, right?
yeah.
So making that available to more people.
I've heard that there was like this school that does like this whole like VR school setup somewhere in like Wales or New England or whatever.
There was the experiment on VR for the trenches from World War II, and they brought in two gentlemen who was there. They're survivors.
Yes.
And they experienced it, and they started crying afterwards. At first, they were afraid that they had traumatized these gentlemen from the experience from that many years ago.
Mm-hmm.
No, they said they finally had this, something of showing people what it was like, and they were so happy about that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Was it about 5 years ago that I remember that was a big
I think
story.
so. I've read it. I've like watched a couple of videos or so that were from a year ago. I
Yeah,
think.
it was real popular.
Yeah.
VR is a very small community. When we have success stories, we pass them around.
Mm-hmm.
Great.
Yeah. So when it comes to using VR for training, of course, a lot of people think about achieving realism, right? But on the other hand, it is also a very good platform for experiencing futuristic scenarios. And sometimes it matters, right? So one example is a recent project that my lab is working on, creating a futuristic construction site that integrates AI and robots, drones, all these kind of futuristic vehicles and machines that can help on the construction site. And well, we don't have those in a real construction site, right? But we can build those in virtual reality, and we can have people trying to collaborate with AI, right, in such environments. And when I say people, I'm not just talking about like one person trying to work with the AI in the construction sites like this. I'm talking about like a team of people who can simultaneously work together in such a virtual environment. And it is great because virtual reality. So the virtual reality world is totally controlled by our program, and we can track everything, including the response of people working with the robots, right? Including how they work with each other. And that is really important because from that tracking, we can understand how well people can collaborate with AI, people can collaborate with each other, and that insight could help us design better AI, right, to collaborate with people, right? And also like tools that would enhance collaboration, right, among the team members. So I think these are like some, perspectives that would really support like why virtual reality is important for training. Right?
We're all obviously fans of VR. We all think educators there. What can you do to make it better? I mean, there are still a lot of resistance out there for VR. There are a lot of teachers who are afraid of it. A lot of people think there's some disadvantages, because there are real disadvantages. The cost problem, the the student engagement, resistance. How can we make it better for education? I mean, is the hardware there? Is the problem the not good enough hardware, or is it more something else?
As someone deploying it in my own classroom, I have completely switched my switch. flip the switch. There it is. On enjoying VR, and I'm absolutely so fed up. It's the deployment. When you know working in a classroom, you need to track your students and how many of them are using the experience. If they're using the experience, if it's like a homework or remote thing, you need that sort of console, that management. Nothing like that is out there. You have to like have your own platform, which means you need your own accounts, your own logins. Meta has so little, I can't say no anymore, but so little enterprise support for deploying them to my classrooms. My students have to show up with Meta accounts. For a while they had to show up with Facebook accounts and agree to Facebook's terms of service in order to pass my classes.
Yeah.
Which I don't want to be a true sentence. So just the deployment, the managing them, keeping them on the same software versions, keeping them updated. There's all of these like tiny little, one of our students had an internship building a charging storage case for Magic Leap headsets, of just how difficult it is to store, manage, and distribute like 40 of these things.
That's a real good point.
But especially in the case that it comes with doesn't include room for the power supply. I still don't get that.
The Meta can't design a case. Don't buy the Meta case. And then the second major hurdle I have as a designer and from a hardware point of view is dealing with professor-student interactions in the classroom.
Yeah.
So I've even built out little demos using like WebSockets and using a server so the professor can like sit at their computer and speak out loud and there's no audio and experience and click a button and they know where everyone is and do that. And I had to roll all of that out myself as a developer.
But you think this is a solvable problem because we've done it for the Apples, for the PCs and other desktop machines that they have software that does exactly that type of tracking.
It's all solvable. I'm pointing at things that exist and I say, put it there.
So I think there's also a real challenge when it comes to, and this is one of the things that like for niche applications where you can expect a certain level of like physical capability and cognitive capability, then for a small audience to train, that's one thing. But when you start to scale this out and you need to account for a lot of the barriers to accessing things inside of a headset, you need to have other ways of accessing the content and other platforms. So there's some companies out there like Engage XR comes to mind. I don't know if people are familiar with them. They're a company that's kind of gone all in on creating an educational platform that, to their credit, they think very much about the desktop experience, the headset experience, the mobile experience. Like you can, they're people that are doing, that are tackling these issues. But I think that's going to be one of the biggest barriers for, it's one thing for me as a teacher to create a lesson plan that where it's the way that I'm doing it now, and I have one lesson plan and maybe I have some accommodations I have to make. It's a whole nother when I'm thinking about the world of immersive experience and headsets that are frankly very personalized and difficult to onboard into.
This is a general question for everyone. You think AR in the long run is going to be better than VR?
Personally, yes.
What's that?
Personally, I believe so.
Yeah,
I think they're going to blend into one platform. I don't think it's going to be AR versus VR at some point. But
I mean, I think that's unfortunately that comes to a lot of my feelings on it. Is that this all feels very fractured. Like everything needs its own proprietary systems. I mean, just talk about Meta is insane. I mean, I made the horrible decision to try and make a VR game in Unreal Engine, and like let me tell you, like it's really like there are just so many things that
There's a reason why they call it Unreal.
It's a lot easier on Unity, and I have not actually toyed around with VR functions there. A former cohort of mine has made their group made a VR project using Unity in a vein that's similar to Keep Talking and No One Explodes.
Oh yeah,
Where
great game.
there is the VR component, or rather the digital game component and the physical component. And these two components have to interact.
Yeah,
asymmetrical gaming is called, where you have one person in the VR system and other people sitting around the TV screen helping him, and that's a very fascinating interaction for classroom.
Mm-hmm.
Can we circle back maybe at dinner on like why people don't like Unreal? Like our lab has gone all in on Unreal, and I would love to
Unreal looks very.
No arguing here, please.
let me first say
We have another panel.
my studio primarily works within Unreal Engine. Like that's what we use for all of our games. We felt more comfortable using it. There's just a lot of things that Unreal Engine does so well, like does incredibly well, but they don't do any support for VR. Like none of the stuff that they
This
put
is
in
not
the
the area of this
UV5
discussion. Let's
Yeah.
take.
No,
Sorry about that. We have to herd them back in here. Okay. Thanks a lot. On that note, let's take a question from the audience. Do you have any questions, or let's? You jumped your hand first.
I have a question. Some discussion with professor-student interactions and appliance for learning lessons. And this is from a personal place in my Stockholm town. What is your perception, Robin, on how to take the tracking data you obtain from students using these tools and apply individualized accommodations to students that face challenges of mental illnesses and neurodivergence, such as, I'm going to say the dreaded A word, autism.
Someone wants to take that? Craig,
Yeah, I can take
you're
that
doing
question.
some study on.
So I mentioned a virtual reality construction site project we're working on. So one experiment of our project actually focused on people with ADHD background. So virtual reality is a very good platform for studying like the learning behaviors of people with that background, because like we can track multiple things, right? We can track their visual attention using eye tracking, right? We can track how they interact with other people, right? We can track whether they're responsive to events happening in the environment. So all these things we can track, and based on the data we track and compare with people with no ADHD background, right? We can perform, let's say, statistical tests to see if there's any significant difference in terms of their response, in terms of their behaviors, in terms of, you know, whatever you want to propose in the hypothesis. So I think it's a really good vehicle if you want to do scientific experiment to see the difference in the learning behaviors of people with different backgrounds.
So these areas are all beyond immersion. So these are actual information you're getting from using the VR.
From VR.
But
It
from
has
VR.
nothing to do with being them in a VR environment.
Right. And
But would you protect that data the same way you would other research study data? Like is that treated?
Definitely.
Using the same protocol.
Yeah, get the IRB approval. I mean, if you work in a university, you know that you need to write that document and have that reviewed by the IRB board. Like, you know, that's the standard procedure. Yeah. I think, one point I want to mention is that it's great to use virtual reality for this kind of experiment, because you can have the same you can generate exactly the same experiment for different groups of people, right? So that way you have a fair ground for comparison, right? So the only variable is the background of the users, right? And then you can experiment, like you can scientifically tell if that background really comes into play in terms of explaining some, you know, differences in the learning behaviors. So that's my
Jordan wants to
experience.
jump
of that.
in.
Yeah, and just as a quick follow-up too, I think one thing that there's a lot of potential for, but I think this is very much at the beginning of understanding here, is the ability to personalize and tailor immersive educational experiences to people's learning styles, right? Like we're seeing a lot of really interesting stuff happening with, LLMs or like AI like tutors that are able to dynamically respond to people. And I think when you start to take that same approach to audio, visual, spatial aspects of education, there's even more opportunity to personalize. So let's take an example. If someone were sensitive to sounds, right? Like being able to set that as a parameter that sounds would be muted or would never go over a certain threshold, like things that could get very, very personalized that would be very difficult to do now, but may be able to develop that kind of understanding into training platforms that would
Just the speed of the training
Yeah.
could be scaled based on the AI's response of identifying that some people work in a slower method, but also want more wider approach to the data. So by the fact that each of these training can be individualized and massive, it's almost like having a single teacher there for a one-on-one, which most places can't handle. They
Yeah.
can't have the resources.
But very early days. Like this is coming, but there's a lot to understand about it, I think.
What can the government, because most of our education is done through the government right now, both the state and federal levels, do to encourage VR right now? We've already talked about the software needs to be fixed, but what else can we do to help it make it more readily available? VR does have a problem with the digital divide.
Yeah.
Has and have
Yeah.
nots. And even the best of the classrooms cannot have VR for everyone. Right? At least not right
No.
now.
Like as I've seen, VR and like technology in general tends to be like reserved for certain departments who are interested in them.
Certain teachers or certain departments?
Certain teachers and certain departments. Or like certain like, I don't know, like high school programs, ones that like specialize in technology and engineering.
Well, do you have any problems with the how your university to get more active and use VR? Is there?
I mean, so much of it for us is a perception issue because we have the hardware, we have the equipment, we can run it. I have student workers who can go and do any of the setup and all of the groundwork with equipment, and I can make experiences for other departments and make them bespoke physical training or occupational therapy training experiences I've had meetings about. So I'm so close to being able to just deliver that, but we're still fighting against this perception that like, oh, it's just us over in the basement of the library. And we
The way computers were 30, 40 years ago.
we
I
are in
remember
the
that.
basement.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's
But-
a very accurate comparison, I think.
I think like the last time that I checked on my alma mater, we had like, I don't know, like 2 to 3 like VR devices, like in like the overall art department because we share everything with just about everyone in
I want
there.
to bring these experiences to everyone. And I
Yeah.
can barely bring them to people who I have every
We
reason
had
to be able to.
We had one professor who couldn't make it today, and I'd like to mention him because departments that really like VR turns out to be history. History
Oh, yeah.
is really loving VR because they can go back and show simulations of London in the Renaissance or
So question, like so what would people say, like if you had to put like a ballpark, when would we be at a point where every student has some sort of like immersive headset the same way every student would have like a laptop now? Like what at what point,
They call them Chromebooks. Ugh.
like how inexpensive does it need to get though?
we're getting down $300 for a halfway decent VR device.
I have seen in one example while I've been doing this of like a success of being able to get enough for like an actual class up when I was working on this racing game, the Newport public school system, their high school has a couple VR headsets as well as 3D printers, and what they do is instead of it being directly for like just a specific section of a class, it's for their entire STEM department. So they use it for like the 3D printers work with like the engineering classes and they print out things for a robotic car, and then the VR stuff has its own track that it works with like 3D modeling, and they're able to actually integrate it into the whole school. And it's like being able to prove that like, oh, this is something that we can use not just for one specific class, but like hundreds of students can get use out of it. That's hard to prove that use case. How do you make enough of those programs that are so good that it completely overhauls entire departments?
Yeah.
Content is king. That has been around for a while. And
Are we talking in 2025 or are we talking in 2018 about Google Cardboard?
But I mean, that was the idea, right? Like 28, that was the vision, that everybody would have Google Cardboard.
And then the problem is content,
Yeah.
Yeah.
delivery.
Yeah.
okay, let's ask a question here. Is AI the solution? Because AI is being creating content at a rate that we cannot duplicate.
Oh, it's a part of the solution.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
You don't think so?
I don't think so.
AI bias? What's wrong with AI?
I don't know how off topic I want to get.
Is it going to be about generative AI?
I mean, there's generative and there's a lot. I mean, tone it down. What are we talking? Like generative?
Okay, we'll
So
I'm going to skip that question
actually,
because you're right.
This is an area that I specialize in right now. That I would say like if you said content is king, content creation. We see this all the time with government and industry. They'll go out and buy the latest and greatest VR headset, and then it will sit on the shelf because it doesn't have the content that they need, right? So you look at a platform like Roblox, which has invested very heavily in the creator tools to create the type of like content experiences that they need and to make
Minecraft.
it easy. Well, yeah, but so
VR
you
chat.
put those tools in educators' hands to create the content that they need. Like then I think that I think you're going to actually see. I mean, ultimately, all roads lead to the holodeck, right? Like the being able to kind of to generate the immersive experience based on your educational curriculum as easily as you would a PowerPoint presentation or induction.
I'm extremely optimistic about WebXR.
Yeah.
Piggybacking
Yeah.
off of the open nature of
Mm-hmm.
web, of the culture around just delivering it over a wire to your device, and being able to then access the hardware and use it.
Yeah.
I will mention about generative AI in general. We did a talk about this last year, and man, I never lost control of a talk like that in my life.
Sorry.
So go take if you.
Crazy.
Oh man, if you want to go to YouTube and watch the video, we're not going to go over that subject. That actually was proposed for a topic, and they didn't want us to do it. But there is a lot of issues there, and everyone feels very personal. I'm gonna put the questions aside because we got a lot of questions and hands going out there. So, Gentleman in Blue, you were one who were first back there. Yeah.
I have been disappointed. We like predominantly worked with a Quest 2 for a while. I liked how freeing it was with what you could do with it, but learned a lot. There's a lot more you can do with a wired headset. I don't know. I was looking forward to debating with Steve about the Apple Vision Pro because I tried to develop with it. That was the most recent headset that I've worked with, and it's interesting what you can do, but I find that developing it, the hurdles that I have using it make developing it 20 million times harder. And I think it just makes it hard for people want to adopt it.
Yeah. Yeah, I love the Vision Pro. I use it daily as a monitor, but only for short.
Please,
Yeah.
anybody use it, please tell me.
It's
I have a keyboard in front of me.
I have a high threshold for pain when it comes to emerging technology. but I would say in terms of a VR headset, like
Yeah,
that I-
Newton.
yeah, I did actually, but the Quest 3 is probably my daily driver.
Yeah,
For
I go far as Quest 3S. The difference between the 3S and the 3, $200, $300 versus $500. If you're going to go for a beginning Kickstarter beginning area, Craig, you're agreeing with me, aren't you? On that, I see your head going up and down.
Which one?
Like Quest 3S.
Quest 3, yeah.
Oof, no.
Well, yeah, we are moving to that. We mostly use Quest Pro now in our lab because of the eye tracking capability.
There it is.
Yeah, eye
That's
tracking
for
is
your-
super important.
The Quest Pro was a limited release, and it's about the same price as the Apple Vision Pro. And it gave you it can do things the Vision Pro can do.
I also have one of
It
those.
wasn't about
You
the same
you can get eye tracking on the Vision Pro if you unlock the medical part of it, but that's a whole other story.
Get a 3S. The pass through on the 3S is a really exciting space to develop and play in, compared to being locked away. But somehow the Index is still the best audio experience out there. We still keep that up and running.
HTC just got their development department shut down and hired off by another group, so I'm not sure how viable HTC is going to be.
I've got a couple other devices that from
Which
from
one
years
uses
ago
tilt
get
brush
used.
again?
Hmm?
Which one? Which?
Oh, that's the open brush now.
It's open brush. So yeah,
Oh,
you can do
okay.
everything.
All right.
But
Open brush and
didn't
open
Google,
blocks.
Didn't Google like acquire the
Yep.
the engineer? So yeah, I think you're going to see some interesting stuff from Android. So that's tomorrow's talk, though.
Yes. Gentleman with the right there. Good. Mhm.
This is somehow also the opposite of the answer when it's museums.
Yeah.
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 Yeah, it's the work in exhibit design when you have people in a space, and then how do you then get them to like do your onboarding flow and like do you know you know, but how do you get them to like go and engage with these different experiences and like think critically about the things you want them to think about? Museums are really good at that. That's what they've been good at forever, and stealing from those design principles from a content and design strategy is very valuable to then apply. That's not quite the same answer in terms of like hardware and shoving something on your face, but
There's a great community out there called Future Spaces. I think it's organized by the founder of a company called Blue Cadet that does a lot of like museum, but highly recommend like subscribing to their newsletter just because they're, I think, every couple of weeks or so they have like really great guest speakers in the space talking about that sort of future and that a lot with like related topics.
In general, the best communities to get the VR information is right now is LinkedIn. There are a lot of really good newsletters to keep up to date more than anything else. That's where I get most of my information.
I've actually been really surprised in the professional space, the number of companies and people that actually have VR headsets. Like genuinely, like I would expect that like I go to places and most times they're like, "What's a VR headset?" No, that's not the case anymore. We've talked to multiple construction companies that have 5-6 headsets. They're all using drones. Architecture companies, there's like luxury apartment buildings now have their own headsets because they let people do walkthroughs of the apartments. So I think honestly it's going to be interesting to see how everything gets integrated, because I guarantee you none of these people have the same headset. They're not going to be at all the same architecture.
We don't have a solution for that, to be honest, right now. That's
Yeah.
one of the problems. And one of the problems with the cardboard was it's a very unpowered machine, and the power has exploded so much, and it makes so much a major difference in VR. I don't think cardboard is a viable solution for anything other than playback of 360 videos.
I mean, it was a bold experiment at its time to try to democratize VR and make it accessible. Like it was, but just way ahead of its time.
I have a picture on my wall that says, "This is the year," a magazine article. "This is the year of VR for the masses." It's dated 1995.
But to be fair, that was a great year for people interested in VR. Like it really was.
Some of us have been waiting for this for a while.
Not to date
Gentleman in the
myself
red.
too much.
Business case for training in the lower to the higher end of the cost of training, like training people to reach people at Walmart or interact with tech teams. And also like for astronauts, building them unique physical apparatus so they can practice spacewalk. I worked in biology ESL lab where you're working with organisms like Achilles if you put your glove on.
Right.
But VR can't get there because a lot of what we train for there is tactile.
Yes.
It's like, squeezing with 1 pound of pressure versus 3 is very different. The equipment, things like that. I was wondering if you guys could speculate a little on the direction it's going, if it's going to will get there, will get there, or is there sort of a use case that can be built for like broader things where you just build the experience for each person, but the actual unit itself is sort of democratized.
I think you're just going to have to recognize in some ways that certain experiences are by its nature non-VR, and some of them are more. The conference that we had for the education market, one of the best examples I ever heard was someone saying that they're using VR to train people to fix air conditioners. And when he said air conditioners, I thought, air conditioner? No, he's talking about an air conditioner the size of this room. And that's such a huge mistake. Not only is it not be able to find one to train someone on it, but in VR, they could show where the airflow was. You could visualize things that you can't see in real life. And as soon as he said that, I realized, what a wonderful experience to train someone for that. And that's not a big project. That's not a small one. It's in between. So we're going to find your niches. Now, I answered that question. Anyone else have to?
So I think haptics is and I would love to actually hear y'all saying this. I'll be real quick. But I saw something really interesting last year at CES from a company called they're called Afferents now. They basically developed a haptics technology that's kind of based on the idea that your nervous system is kind of easily duped, and it basically sends it's like a ring style format almost, that it sends like a signal that activates it, that gives you that.
I think I've heard of that one.
real interesting stuff. But again, like a lot of the other haptic stuff that's out there, it's really kind of more at the level of like buzzing or
And there's no standards for this yet.
Yeah, right. Like it's still coming, but so I'll punt from there.
In VR, there's a concept of 1 + 1 is 3. The more things you fool for someone, which is why everyone in the world is working on smells, visual,
How many
haptic
people are
feedback.
working on smells?
They're trying. It's not-
Like
not-
I've heard of like only one, all right, in some Japanese company.
They haven't been successful, but they are because it's important.
There's one guy who's been on who's been on a lifelong quest to safely recreate the smell of jet fuel for like a very specific like refueling training simulator.
So to go back to the question,
Yes.
I will talk about jet fuel smells. To go to the history of VR and where most of this technology came from, it's the Link Trainer, which is a pre-computer, no digital flight simulator. It was this blue little metal box in the 50s, and you'd sit in it, and it'd wiggle you around when you had the controls. And before that, you could land a plane successfully, and any landing was successful. Then after that, you could fail. You could practice, and you could fail. So any way that we can allow in a position where where failure is bad, like as you mentioned, is a space where I feel like we can access that with immersive media of some kind. Although I don't necessarily know if that's going to be a headset and a controller. It might be something closer to projection mapping and some sort of camera system. It might be something closer to a pile of Arduinos. It might be closer to watch a video and follow along while somebody hits you with a ruler.
What do you think, is there like a concept in your like design process of like we don't need it to be 100% accurate, we just need like is it more like what is the highest level of fidelity we can achieve, and how critical is that to this being successful?
The answer to that question is mental models and what you need to develop that, like visualizing airflow. Excellent example of, we need to visualize a mental model that's going to allow me to understand this otherwise invisible thing.
Yeah.
And then the other answer to that question is play testing.
Yeah.
It depends. What an unsatisfying answer.
We're still learning a lot of these things. We're trying to figure out what we're learning. We've got a question here first, and then the gentleman over there.
Curious, how accessible is a VR headset to someone who can't see how to navigate it? So to have a voiceover, some sort of narrator that you can navigate through it, and also is there any apps that someone who's trying to use sort of navigation app or something like my eyes can describe it?
That's not quite in the area of education, but I know they're working on it. Those are more in the area of smart glasses, the Meta Quest. No, excuse me, the Meta Ray-Ban glasses. Yeah.
Alchemy Labs is the VR production company that probably has the most resources to actually invest in accessibility. They have play tested their games with visual impaired users from various different degrees. So I would definitely look into Alchemy Labs, and it's job simulator, vacation simulator.
Well, you need more as a camera facing forward with AI. And tell them, Gordon.
Well, and LiDAR, right? Like it's all about scene understanding.
Yeah.
And being able to not just kind of visually understand the environment, but also to be able to physically kind of understand when something is entered in the field. Like I see so many proposals for like using the HoloLens for that Be My Eyes type of application. And I feel like it's one of those things that's coming, but I'm trying to think of anybody that's out there that's done it in a way that's like reliable. Like
we're right now to the point of those type of glasses are used to identify what you're looking at.
Yeah.
That's the first step. Once we get past that, we'll start working in the area. It also has to do with positional tracking, which, contrary to what you think, GPS and triangulation on cell towers is not accurate enough for walking around unless you're having a huge battery and using military grade GPS, which would drain your battery real fast.
So that's where scene understanding though, like that being able to really kind of rapidly process things on the device even without having to like send something out to understand I'm in a subway station. How do I know when I'm not about to walk into a pylon or off of
They
a
are
ledge or
working on
something
it,
like
but
that?
we're not quite there yet.
Yeah.
I like to call that the Tony Stark experience. And we're a little bit far away from the software. Now, the gentleman over here on the left has asked a question. Yes.
And a little bit before that, I was on a separate panel with virtual racing. And it pretty much ties back to your question about immersion. And I brought up a good point about when I was playing my brother's VR headset on the Santa Corsa, he had himself the racing ring, he butt kicked it, and an actual pad. So you get that immersion when you're driving on almost pavement,
Yeah.
or you're driving top on third. And it's nice, I'm looking forward to something where you actually get feedback, because I saw an article 3 months ago, Disney is having some sort of platform.
Have you been to the F1 arcade in DC?
No. but I've
No,
heard
they
about it.
they have a crazy simulator, and it's like and I think there's a lot of really exciting stuff with using VR for cars.
Yeah, you get this full immersive.
They tease me about being an Apple boy sometimes, and I think that there's a lot to be said for the visual control, the hand gestures in the Apple Vision
Wait.
Pro. But let me finish. The one thing I do miss is haptic feedback. It's very important. Meta's getting around because they're working on some wristbands, which do not have anything to do with control. They just give back some haptic feedback, and that's been very successful.
I'll steal your question and redirect it towards education. Perhaps the how many more senses, how many more levels or degrees or modules of modals of communication, channels of communication, whatever term we want to use, do we need? And the answer sort of lies in the type of thing we're trying to teach. If we're trying to like test someone's ability to make certain kinds of decisions in reaction to a scenario, probably not as many. If we want someone to have like an appropriate reflex, probably much more.
There was a big breakthrough when we started doing 360 sound. That was a phenomenal breakthrough for them. It made, no, to actually have not the fact that it comes around in all direction, but from a pinpoint over there and that over there. Should lady hear you? You can go first. Yes.
So I guess I'm very interested in the idea of VR and language learning, and like what can VR do that other programs like video games or other sort of like virtual reality things, like what can VR do that other?
Good question. One of the ones we want to ask.
Yeah, I have thought of similar ideas because I think virtual reality is a excellent platform for the language learners, right? So you can have, let's say you can send the user to some other country, right, with all the virtual characters speaking another language, and so the user gets to know how to speak their language in order to cope with some real-world situation, right? And also nowadays we are talking about LLM, right? And we can have the AI coming in to translate the to correct if there's any language mistake, right, in a encouraging manner. We can also use the AI to drive the virtual characters, right, to speak naturally with the user. So all of these are like opportunities. We can combine AI and virtual reality to help with language learning.
And of course, there might be a bit of a need of the human edit or touch in order to understand the certain nuances that other languages have.
Duolingo is based in Pittsburgh, and I've had some chats that have a few things that they're working on. One, being able to see a virtual speaker who can then deliver the lessons, but they can gesture and they can do facial expression as well, communicating, which can help you understand. And then the second thing they're excited about is they ask a lot of the users of Duolingo to like, would you ever want a one-on-one chat to practice their language? And they all say yes, but they never sign up.
Yeah.
So Duolingo is deploying like these AI chat things that seem bad, but people use them because there's like they don't feel embarrassed.
There are
Bronze-
some devices out there that actually the same way tracks your eye, tracks your mouth position. And I know the military uses them for some very specific purposes. That would also be a possibility. I don't see that in the commercial one, but it's out there.
So broadly too, I would say like can't really underestimate the value of experiencing something at true scale. That's where if I really come down to like why is this potentially more impactful than looking at a game on a 2D screen or on a phone? That ability to experience something as if I'm there and at true scale, and even like playing with scale, being able to instantly go from, like Ant-Man all the way to like giant Ant-Man, right? And inside of a virtual environment, there's a lot of fun modalities that
You had a question here, sir, and I only going to take one or two more. We're running out of time.
How do you feel like the rules here with the back and mobile devices for kids in school? How does that affect electronic learning that you're talking about? Is there a way the kids learn, electronic devices without being distracted by the non-educational activities and things like that?
I wish we had a K9 12 teacher here. But we don't, so.
Any point, you know, the school not getting back to them.
I feel like that ship sailed.
That's a good point. We always had that problem now with phones and everything else. I think it's a solvable problem, but I don't have any direct experience.
I think it's
Connie, you?
one basically hold like all like personal devices until the end of class, and as with just about every classroom that I substitute sat in, everybody gets like a standardized device with the same thing, same programs, same apps, same features.
Gentleman in red had a question. Yes, sir. Thank you.
Also, I do a lot of different aspects of teaching. I wanted to separately as part of my how would like reading actually be if I could integrate that into that form of education. The standard classroom is still, but my main concern I'm actually more interested in learning about is how are AI and AR developers or like VR developers trying to get around I guess the economic hurdles that schools with less money, like schools that I work in as well as other schools, that are more privileged, maybe a charter school or private school, but have full access to all of these things. Whereas certain students wouldn't. What are we going to do about this economic disparity? Well, all the students that deserve the same type of
We've been trying to get the higher education to help push these things forward. There's the thing is that what I always try to push forward is that once you've made something to use as the base, it is not super expensive to make lots of them. And one of the big projects that I've been working on with my studio was we were very fortunate that we won a grant for AI right before ChatGPT took off. So everybody was like, "Ooh, AI company!" But we were like trying to find what we could use it for, because we could make complex personalities. And we found out that we could recreate long dead historical figures so that you could ask them questions and they would give accurate responses. And testing this in VR, which I will say, to the Unreal Engine point, it's great when you're working with one character. You could talk to Marie Curie, and Marie Curie is then able to explain to you her life, answer questions, talk about her discoveries. That's something that doesn't require anything super expensive to run on any kind of computer. That could run on a school computer. Like, it doesn't need anything crazy. But the thing is, getting over the hurdle of the initial development is what is so hard to get these things going. I think once they exist and they are out there, it shouldn't be a barrier, no matter what the funding of the educational institution
I'm going to have
is.
to stop the question at this point because we're going to have a follow-up for the cleanup. We only have about 5 minutes left. About the martial art one, talk to me afterwards. So the gentleman at GMU University who's doing that tracking right now, I can put you in touch with him. Okay?
So I want to add to that, to your question too. So what I do to help in universities is to set up some kind of like VR stations and makerspaces where, students who have no VR equipment, no background at all, can just come and try the technology. I have set that up in George Mason University. I also set that up in UMass, where I work. And like back in around 2015, when virtual reality headsets were still very new to many people who have no background in the technical side. And I think it's really successful. So I got quite a lot of complaints about the space that I set up, because basically that room kind of become an arcade game center, because lots of students just drop by there and then play VR games. But we achieve the purpose, right? So we just want people to try the technology, so that maybe they will want to invest in a headset after trying, right? But providing this opportunity to let people first try it, I think is very important. Yeah, very important for students.
We're going to be wrapping it up here, so I'm going to ask everyone here to come up what you expect VR to be for education in 5 years. What do you expect is going to be that we're going to have that will make all the difference?
I hope and I am expecting that it is used as a way for us to preserve a lot of lost history and culture. I think it's a really fantastic way that that's something that nothing else can be done. If a place is gone and doesn't exist to history, there's no way you can visit it unless it's rebuilt. And I think VR is the absolute best way to visit some of these places.
Websites I want to deploy and send out, distribute everything we want to make as easy as we can send someone a link.
So those are definitely like two of my topics. I would say, I think, one of the things we talk about is sort of the future of work and the future of workforce training, especially for jobs that relate to emerging technologies, autonomous vehicles, robots, things like that. I think we're going to see a lot more workforce training programs, maximizing the benefits of immersive training to help people keep up with the pace of the basically technologies advancing.
Overall trips that don't involve going to the physical location and interacting with objects that you do not usually get to touch in real life. So far.
Yep. Conversational virtual characters. I think this is really coming given how fast, ChatGPT, LLM, this kind of technology is developing. Right now, we don't see virtual characters that are truly conversational in virtual environments, right? But combining those technologies into virtual reality, I think we will soon have such characters walking around in the virtual environments. Yeah.
And for me, it's going to be the transparency of VR. Right now, you can either have VR that's really good and covers your face, which is a terrible social experience, or you can have glasses that aren't that terrible, but they're not a very good VR, AR experience. Hopefully, it'll get to be the point where someone can wear one of these devices and interact with someone in the real world and not have any negative impact. But we don't have that right now. I wish we did. I also want to leave you guys with this one thought, is that everyone in this room is a VR fan, or you wouldn't be here. Some of us are experts, and we're not the real world. Out there, this is very bleeding edge. This is brand new stuff. Vast majority of people may have heard of VR, but they have no idea what it is. So keep it in mind that we are very much the bleeding edge. We are the brand new stuff. And even though some of them have been waiting for 20 years for this to happen, it really hasn't happened the way we want. So let's see what it's going to be in the next couple of years. And with that, I'll thank you for coming. Hopefully you enjoyed yourself.